podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Doc Thompson On Demand.
Today, on my way to work, $3.99 a gallon. Now, the station I went by is usually a little bit higher, the one I drove by. So I'm sure it's a little bit less at some of the other stations, but still, $3.99 a gallon this morning. How long before all of them, before the average in the tri-state is $3.99 a gallon? It's going to continue. I mentioned yesterday there are people predicting that $4.45 by the end of summer will be the national average. Certainly seems that way. I want to introduce you to the 245 people that are going to cause your gas prices to go up. Now, there are a lot of reasons your gas prices are going up. Of course, speculation as part of it. Development, whether or not to drill, government policies, all of these things. Lack of refineries in America. All of these things cause gasoline prices to go up. But these 245 people, and it's not really their fault, but these 245 people are going to cause your gasoline prices to go up. Well, think about this. If you had a company and you were expecting to expand that company, and you put out a lot of money to expand that company, maybe build a new wing on it or a new facility. Maybe you have a couple of locations of pizza places and you decide to open up another couple. And you put huge money out to open them up. And then something disastrous happens and you're unable to open them. You can't collect insurance on it, nothing like that. You're just out the money. What's going to happen to your business? Well, depending upon how much you've leveraged the business in order to open those other, branches, in order to expand, you could lose it. But if you didn't leverage that much to lose it, anything else would just cut into your profits and your cost of doing business, which would cause the prices that you have to offer your customers to go up. And that's what's happening with Shell Oil. 245 people are being protected by the EPA. So they've denied permits for Shell Oil to drill off the northern coast of Alaska. Shell Oil has spent $4 billion in order to drill there. It took 5 years and $4 billion. That's their investment. They were exploring for oil, 5 years, $4 billion, $2.2 billion just for the leases alone. And then the EPA said, yeah, we're not going to give you the permit. Well, there's 245 people nearby that could be affected by your drilling. How would they be affected? No, not by the sounds of the drill, not by leaking oil, anything like that. They would be affected by an icebreaker, a ship that would have to go there and break the ice so they could do business from time to time. Well, that icebreaker would pollute the air. I'm guessing it probably runs on diesel, right? Well, whatever it is they're burning in order to power that icebreaker, it could affect those 245 people that live in a small village, about a square mile big, and they could end up, breathing the exhaust from this icebreaker. And because of that, the EPA says, yeah, we're not going to give you your permits. We're not going to allow you to. So Shell Oil has to take a $4 billion and 5-year hit to their business. Of course, it's going to cause your oil prices to go up and your gas prices to go up. How much with this incident? Well, Shell Oil is a gargantuan company. And I'm sure they do factor in some things like this where they won't be able to open or they'll run into problems, cost of doing business. They're very shrewd. They understand permits and governments and shell and drilling and dealing with all of these things. But that's still the cost of business. Even if they have factored in this to the cost of doing business and they expect to have some of this happen so the company doesn't completely fall apart, they're still passing those expenses on to you and I. They have to. In order to get people to continue to invest, and keep in mind, even though you hear about billions upon billions of dollars that these evil oil companies make, by percentage, they still make a lot less than a lot of other businesses. The percent of profit is much lower than a lot of other businesses. It's just you hear about billions of dollars because that's what the green people like to throw out there when they want to vilify the evil oil companies. When really, they're making a modest profit percentage-wise. Who gets all those billions of dollars? It's not two guys that are smoking cigars on the back of a fossil fuel-burning yacht while they club baby seals. It's not those guys. Yeah, there are some very rich people who invest, and there are some moderately rich people who invest, and there are some middle-class and lower-class people who also invest in oil companies. They buy stock in them. They buy stock in companies that support the oil companies. So, your EPA just caused your oil and gas prices to go up because they're protecting these 245 people from possible exhaust fumes from an ice-breaking ship. By the way, the village that they live in, that's 1 square mile, the 245 people, it's 70 miles away. To give you an example, if you were downtown Cincinnati and you wanted to go downtown Dayton, how many miles is that? About 56 miles. This village is farther away from that drilling site than Dayton is from Cincinnati. It's farther from village, rather. The drill site to the village is 70 miles away, farther than Cincinnati is to Dayton. Do you think the exhaust of a ship coming by 70 miles away is going to affect them that much? How about this? It is such a pristine area. That's part of the reason people object to it. It's so pristine. It's perfect, Doc. You don't understand. It hasn't been touched by man's evil hands. They don't have all this machinery and pollution and all of that stuff. It's pristine. If it's that pristine, don't you think the exhaust from one icebreaker ship 70 miles away would get dissipated pretty quickly? Don't you think that would... I mean, it has a lot of give, right? Even with that exhaust ship 70 miles away, if it was 10 miles away, they're going to have less pollutants than you do sitting in your living room because it's all around us. So the EPA took it upon themselves to protect these 245 people from the possibility of having some pollutants from an icebreaker ship 70 miles away. And because of that, Shell Oil takes a $4 billion 5-year hit to their bottom line. We'll pass that on to you and I as the cost of doing business. And that's one more reason our oil prices and our gasoline prices will tick up that much more at a time when they are fast approaching a national average of over $4 a gallon. Wilbur, you're on 700 WLW.
Yeah, I just want to call you up. You know what the problem is? It's still George Bush's fault. And never forget that.
It's George Bush's fault? Okay. All right. Well, very good. I'm glad you're sticking to it. I tell you about stories like this with the EPA, but it's still George W. Bush's fault. Still his fault. Doc Thompson, 700 WL. Fox 19 storm tractor forecast for meteorologist Frank Marzullo. Mainly dry this afternoon. Afternoon high around 76. The rains return. Thunderstorms tonight. Overnight low around 60. More rain and T-storms tomorrow. High 75. Currently it is 62 at the big one. 700 WLW. Very interesting. The United States Postal Service, they're getting ready to release some Go Green stamps. It's a, do you call them a book of stamps if they're all laid out in one sheet? I guess a sheet of stamps. 16 of them. 4 rows of 4. They're Go Green, an ode to the letter. Go Green stamps, an ode to the letter. Stamps are very odd. If I get a chance, I'll put the post the pictures of them on my blog at 700WLW.com. Take me about 20 minutes or so, but I'll get them up there. 16 of them. Down the left-hand side, they say USA Go Green. They all have a picture that takes up most of it. And then at the top, they all say little green things that, you can help with being green and the environment and stuff like that. Buy local produce and reuse bags, for example. And it has a picture of a bag. And the artwork is not very good. No, I'm not being mean. It's not very good. It's kind of a cartoony art. Fix water leaks, and it has a hand shutting off a leaky faucet. Share rides, and it has a car with some people crammed inside. Turn lights off, not in use. Choose to walk. Composting, and it has a picture of a guy. Fortunately, they don't get too graphic with the composting. They just show him throwing stuff onto a big pile. Let nature do the work, and it shows a clothesline, recycling, all of these different things as part of their Go Green stamps, an ode to the letter. Now, when I saw this, I started thinking, what are stamps used for? To mail letters and packages, right? What are packages and letters primarily made out of? Paper. Where does paper come from? Trees. These people are going green with stamps that will be used to mail pieces of trees that people have cut down. What are stamps made out of? Paper? Now, they have some now that they're made out of plastic as well. Is that any better? But most of them are paper, at least part of them. So they will affix one part of a tree to another part of a tree that they have cut down and send it to somebody. How will they affix the stamp to the letter? Glue, chemicals, right? Is that really green? So you have this group of people who put out green stamps to tell people to be environmentally friendly, to go green. And by putting them out, they are advocating you take a hunk of a tree that's been cut down, put some chemicals on it, stick it to another part of a tree that's been cut down, and then send it to somebody. How do they send those things? Do they have a transporter device like Star Trek? No. Fossil fuels. Primarily, things are shipped using fossil fuels, the burning of fossil fuels. Cars, planes, trains, automobiles, buses, trucks, whatever, right? So, the green people are advocating a part of a tree that's been cut down be attached to another part of a tree that's been cut down with chemicals, and then they will be loaded onto a fossil fuel burning device and shipped around the world. Boy, it sounds pretty green, doesn't it? I'm thinking they may have been more green if they just would not have put the stamps out. If they had, how about this? How about because they made the new stamps, didn't they have to have new dyes and molds and whatever else they use made? Once you already have your forever stamp or whatever it is, and it's a picture of a flag or the Liberty Bell or an eagle or whatever, to keep manufacturing those doesn't cost you anymore. You've already got the print, right? It's already made. But if you design a new one, it has to go through that entire process of people designing it. That didn't add to the carbon footprint. So, they created a huge carbon footprint by designing these that advocate you take down part of a dead tree, stick it to another dead tree by the use of chemicals, which are not probably environmentally friendly, and then you will use fossil fuel burning vehicles in order to transport that to somebody else. That doesn't sound very environmentally friendly or conscious, does it? I saw an article from a greenie on a blog, and somebody actually suggested that to him. That mailing letters is not the greenest process. An email, how much energy is that? I mean, you type it out, your computer's a lot of times already on, but even if you turn it on just for that, how much energy does it waste? Sending an email. How about a text message? Even less. So you could do these things. So the United States Postal Service in general, is not a green process. And then one of the green weenies defended it. They said that being green beyond efficiency and carbon counting, you've got to be green beyond efficiency and carbon counting. How would you do that? That's the whole point, isn't it? You count carbon. Efficiency is at the corner of being green. Then this green blogger suggested that feeding our souls, our inner poets, artists and muses often get left out of the equation because the results-oriented world we've created only measures in tangible units, whether it's parts per million, click-through rates, or dollars and cents. So apparently you can be green if you feed your soul. You don't have to worry about actually cutting your carbon count or being efficient. You don't have to measure it in parts per million. You can feed your soul, according to this person. They went on to say, how does one measure the environmental impact of an afternoon of writing a letter, of putting down one's thoughts on paper, of tuning in deeply with another? I didn't realize that had an environmental impact at all, but apparently feeding your soul does. You know what feeds my soul? Eating charred animal flesh while cruising down the road, going for a long drive. You know what else feeds my soul? Being able to crank my thermostat up to about 78 in the wintertime and dropping it down to about 55 in the summer. On a hot summer day, after I've gone outside and driven my lawnmower around the yard, and the heat beats down on me and I'm sweating, and I'm burning carbon fossil fuels in order to cut my lawn, and then I water it, then I go into my very cold house because I have the AC cranked down, and I get an ice cold beer that was shipped into the store because it's brewed someplace far away. Those things feed my soul. And according to them, they're not environmentally friendly at all. So which is it? Feeding your soul, or is it efficiency and carbon counting? How does one measure the impact of an afternoon eating charred animal flesh after cutting your lawn and watering it in your sub-zero summer air-conditioned house? How does one put down one's thoughts on paper about that environmental impact of an afternoon spent that way? Apparently, I am a lot more green than I realized. Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. Doc Thompson at 700 WLW. Kelly in Hamilton, how are you?
Hey, I'm fine. I was listening to you go through all the steps of what it takes to make a stamp.
Yes, ma'am.
And it has to do with our society is so Jekyll and Hyde about going green, and then the other big important word, jobs. Well, look at all the jobs that you would be losing if you got rid of stamps. Lumberjacks, paper mills, glue factories. What would all the postal workers do? I mean, that's the production and use of stamps helps create and maintain jobs, don't you think?
No, absolutely. I have no problem with them making stamps, Kelly. If you have the desire to use the Postal Service or anything else, if you want to buy paper or stamps, I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with them is them pretending to be green and then doing things under the auspice that they are promoting green behavior, yet they're really not.
Well, of course not. That's what I'm trying to say. Our whole society functions that way. Everyone talks green. Mm-hmm. Well, but they don't do green.
Well, it's very interesting, though. I don't support the idea that you should continue to make stamps just because it will create jobs. There has to be a market for it. You understand that, right?
Of course,
okay.
Of course.
Okay. Yeah, but I do agree with you there, though. You're right. They're going to create jobs. They could have said that, but they still would have been hypocritical because they're not being green.
I agree. It was just a little bit of sarcasm.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the call. Rocky, Eastgate, you're on the big one.
Hey, Doc. Pleasure listening to you. I
Thank
never
you.
thought anybody could fill in for the other guy, but you've done great.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Very much.
My favorite unanswerable environmental, I guess, oxymoron questions. When you're at the grocery store, they say paper or plastic. My answer is, I don't know, fill up the landfills or deplete the rainforest. It really doesn't matter.
Well, Rocky, and there's the point. Okay, we went from you've got to go to plastic because you're cutting down the rainforest and stuff with the paper bags. Now they say, okay, the plastic bags are filling up the landfills, but they didn't have any foresight to say that was going to happen.
It's got something to do with the blowholes on the whales, I believe, too,
right?
doesn't it?
Yeah, but nobody thought ahead when they were telling us to go to plastic that we would save the trees, that would be a problem. Now they're telling us we should do neither, Rocky. We should carry in some sort of like hemp tote or something that we use back and forth from the stores.
Yeah, or the wool bag or something. There go the sheep. I don't know what to do.
But then, right. But if they were so wrong about the plastic bags, what are they going to be wrong with those totes?
There's something coming.
Well, I've already heard of one of them, and I appreciate the call. One of them is that they aren't the cleanest. Unless you are actively washing them all the time, then you're bringing germs in on them. You know, things leak from products you buy at the store at times. They're not always the cleanest. Then you set the stuff down on the ground, or you set it down on the conveyor belt at the grocery store or whatever. None of these are clean surfaces. That's just a short-term one. Down the road a piece, they're going to tell us that if we keep using the totable bags we use back and forth, that Jupiter is going to collide with Saturn or something. That'll be I'm serious. They'll come up with some. You don't understand. If we continue to do this, all of the planets will collide. It'll be like Conan the Barbarian or something. Now, what was the cartoon? The cartoon one in the 80s. Remember that one? Was it Conan the Destroyer? Whatever it was. The cartoon. The guy had the flaming sword. Remember the Earth collided with the moon? That's what they'll end up coming up with. Oh, we're using those reusable bags. Whew, if we don't go to something else, reusable boxes or something, the Earth's going to collide with the moon. We're all doomed. Gregory sent me an email, doc@700WLW.com. He said, subject, Shell. Doc, are you serious about Shell? Shell has the resources and the ability to redeploy those assets in another area and drill to their little heart's content. Well, you're wrong about that, Gregory. Mr. MBA, who feels the need to put that in his signature as well as who it's from. No, I'm always skeptical of people who feel the need to tell you of their accomplishments in their name when they're just sending a random email. I have an MBA. I'm important. Anyway, I would think with somebody with an MBA, you would understand that they can't simply redeploy those resources if they've already spent billions of dollars in that specific area. They have wasted 5 years of their time drilling when they could have been exploring some other place, and they have wasted $4 billion. Now, they make a lot of money, so it's not going to bankrupt the company or anything. They're still going to be solvent. But it is going to cut into their profits, and it is going to cost anybody who uses Shell more money. Gregory, the MBA, who feels the need to tell people that he has an MBA, went on to say, so what if the EPA limits what the oil companies can do? The oil companies engage in price fixing, receive multiple subsidies from the government and tax abatement, just to name a few. So what if the EPA limits them? See, he throws out a couple of things that really don't belong together there. What if they limit them? Do you want them limiting your ability to be an MBA? Do you want them to limit you and your ability to make money? No, of course you don't. The EPA shouldn't be involved in stopping a business from engaging in business based on the fact that 70 miles away, 245 people may get some pollutants from an ice-breaking ship. But he goes on to say they engage in price fixing. Prove it. That's an allegation. Prove it. Gregory, the MBA. They receive multiple subsidies from the government and tax abatements. Well, you're right. They do agree. They do get multiple subsidies. But as I pointed out, I think that's ridiculous. They shouldn't. But you're saying the EPA should control what they do because they get subsidies? The subsidies are wrong, of course. But for that reason, the EPA should limit their ability to drill? I would think you would be smart enough with an MBA to realize that if they're getting subsidies, we should make some of that money back, and they should open it up for drilling. So what you want to do is, even though they get subsidies, you want to limit their ability to do business, which costs us even more money after we've given the subsidies to drill. Where'd you get your MBA anyway? He went on to say, we are empowered not to buy Shell's gas if they choose to reprice their gas based on the EPA's decision. By the way, I am one of the world's worst spellers, and this guy with the MBA said if they choose to reprice their gas, THERE, gas, based on the EPA's decision. You're right, we don't have to do it, but it is an industry. The EPA has not targeted just Shell, but all energy producers in America. This is one more example of how their limitations cause our oil and gas prices and energy prices to go up. Furthermore, he says, you may not see the increase in price of gas. A barrel of oil makes much more than gasoline. Yes, you're right. What that means is we could see the prices go up not just on gasoline, but on all of those other things. Oil goes into producing all kinds of plastics and other things. So you're right. The price on gasoline will go up with enough of these. Enough of the EPA limiting what oil companies can do and drill, we will see it go up, but it'll go up on other things as well. Things like plastic, oil-based products, etc. So do us all a favor. Don't protect the oil companies. Protect them? You don't think they should have a fair shake to do business in America? You, the MBA, are simply an oil company hater. He says they're doing fine. They are. You and I are the ones that get targeted because that's the cost of doing business. That's what businesses do. So, if you want your energy prices to continue to go up, Gregory, the MBA, then go ahead, attack the oil companies. Doc Thompson, 700 WLW. Flying Pig events are all weekend. You'll find Dave Armbruster, Doc Thompson, of course, Seg will all be out various times greeting runners. It'll be running on Sunday. You can still register to run, or you can find the best place to cheer on the runners en route. Just go to flyingpigmarathon.com. There's also links in my blog at 700WLW.com. Back to the phones. Larry, how are you?
Good. How you doing,
Doing
Doc?
fine, sir.
Good. Just a quick comment on the going green stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Our local recycle company, when you put things out in the box, you can put out your bottles and your cans, etc. But if you put out a newspaper, they want it in a brown paper bag.
I would think that would be throwing away brown paper bags unnecessarily.
Well, I just think it's funny. I mean, it's supposed to be recycled stuff, so when you go to the grocery, you always have to get a couple of the brown paper bags if you're going to put your newspapers out to recycle. So.
What we want you to do is we want you to put them in brown paper bags and then oil them down. Get some crude oil those suckers down. That's what you want to do. Larry,
Okay,
it's all craziness. None of it makes sense when you're dealing with the green weenies. They're crazy. They're so caught up in wanting to do something, they don't even know what to do. Their hypocrisy is at the center of the entire thing. I had an email from Steve. He said, of those 245 people in that small village 70 miles away from where they want to drill that's costing Shell a bunch of money, he asked, did the EPA even ask them if they gave a crap? That is a great question. I don't know if they did or not. I would think the people were probably somebody who cared about something like that, but maybe they don't. Maybe someone go up and go, hey, 70 miles from here, we're gonna drill. 70 miles. Does that matter? How far away do the people have to be before the EPA would say it was okay? 100? 400? I'm guessing those people can't get that 70 miles quickly. There's probably no roads. By the way, this area that they wanted to drill, they just shut down. 27 billion barrels of oil is what they're guessing. That's the estimate, 27 billion barrels. To put that into perspective, that represents 2.5 times more oil that has flown down the transatlantic pipeline in its 30-year history. I don't know if you know it, but that pipeline is getting low on oil. We got 30 years of oil out of it. And if you've seen any of the pictures or done any of the studies on it, it hasn't hurt the environment. It's getting low. We were getting about 660,000 barrels a day. It's carrying only about a third of its capacity right now. But in its 30-year history, we would get more out of this new place, 2.5 times more than the transatlantic pipeline in 30 years. I'd say that's someplace that might be really worth drilling, huh? How about moving those 245 people? It'd be cheaper to move them. Take some U-Hauls, load up all of theirs. How much stuff could they have? It's 245 people. Town's only a square mile big. Get some U-Hauls, load them up, move them so they're 75 miles from it. How about that? Doc Thompson, home of the Reds, 700 WL. Doc Thompson at 700 WLW.
To Alaska, go north, the rush is on.
Well, Johnny Orton there for you.
To Alaska, go north, the rush is on.
All right, I got an email from Tony. He said, Doc, I've used those cotton grocery totes in the past, and you're right, they get dirty just after one use. So when we use them, we have to wash them. Wouldn't that raise energy costs with the extra laundry, soap, water waste, all that? No, you're right. The energy to run it, first of all, the dishwasher or the clothes washer, if you dry them, anything like that, and you're using soap. And let's face it, we understand the more soap you use, that's bad for the environment, right? Ed sent me an email, said, Doc, I live in Piqua, about 70 to 80 miles north of Cincinnati. Who is going to protect me from the exhaust of the boats in the Ohio River or from the smoke that comes off the fireworks when the Reds win? Think of the children. Ed, you bring up a good point, but I'm not sure you're really tuned into the future problems that you could face living 70, 80 miles away from Cincinnati. 70, 80 miles away, that means when those trolley cars start running, think of the noise pollution. Those things aren't silent. These things make noise. Think of the noise pollution you will have to suffer through 70 miles away. Rob in Hamilton, you're on 700 WLW.
Hey, Doc, I had an answer for you on your cartoon question.
Yeah. What was that?
Thundar the Barbarian.
Thundar the Barbarian. That's it. I couldn't get. Yeah, they had that mucklock, or what do they call that goofy guy with them? And then,
ride around on like the mutant horses. And
and they had
the moon was split in half.
The hot chick that he hung out with, the sorceress. She was saucy.
He put some spells on.
Thundar the Barbarian. I appreciate the information. I like that flaming
One of the
sword.
other worst cartoons ever is Captain Planet. We were talking about it at work. Do you remember that? Captain Planet. They always had some environmental disaster that they had to go and solve save the world from the environmental disasters.
Quick, call Captain Planet. Somebody threw this aluminum can on the side of the road, the scourge of the planet. Yeah,
or a thermometer was broken, and the mercury is going to destroy the earth.
Oh, yeah. And that one was pretty obvious, Rob, but I don't know if you remember the Super Friends early on, prior to the Legion of Doom Super Friends. When it was Wendy and Marvin. It was only a couple of years ago that I realized, wait a minute, those were almost Captain Planet-esque.
They were.
Yeah, if you go back and look at them, all of the people that they were fighting had something to do with the environment. I remember there was one where the guy came from some freezing planet. This shows you how crazy it is. The global warming. He came from, it was a freezing planet, heating planet, whatever it was. His planet had almost destroyed itself because of pollution. So he was coming here to do something, and it was causing the earth danger or something. It was somebody's polluting the rivers. These are the things that I started getting brainwashed with when I was a kid. The Super Friends. Yeah, Superman battling people who are polluting the planet. So Captain Planet just became more obvious with it. The green weenies. Doc Thompson on the home of the Reds, 700 WLW.